Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. According to the Canadian press, a separatist group in Alberta, Stay Free Alberta, has formally submitted nearly 302,000 signatures to Elections Alberta, aiming to force a referendum on the province's secession from Canada. This figure significantly surpasses the 178,000 signatures legally required to trigger such a vote. Premier Danielle Smith has publicly committed to holding a referendum should the petition's signatures be verified. The submission was a notable event in Edmonton, with Mitch Silvestre, head of Stay Free Alberta, leading a convoy of 7 trucks carrying the names to the Elections Alberta office. Over 300 supporters gathered, displaying provincial flags and chanting Alberta Strong. However, the path to a referendum is not clear. An Edmonton judge is expected to deliver a ruling this week on a court challenge initiated by a coalition of Alberta First Nations, who argue that Alberta's separation would infringe upon their existing treaty rights. The outcome of this legal challenge could significantly impact the separation group's efforts. Ontario opposition leader Marit Stiles made strong accusations against Premier Doug Ford on Monday, stating that a public inquiry into his government's handling of the Greenbelt and other files, if she is elected premier, could expose dirty deals and potentially lead to Ford's imprisonment. Speaking at Queen's Park, Stiles specifically criticized the lack of public access to documents regarding a canceled private jet purchase in the Greenbelt, accusing the premier of corruption. She highlighted that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, is already investigating the Ontario government's Greenbelt decision, and emphasized that individuals in other governments have faced jail time for lesser offenses. The Ford government recently passed legislation restricting public access to information, even retroactively, and avoided a court order to release the premier's phone records. Premier Ford has previously apologized for the Greenbelt decision, calling it a mistake. The premier's office did not immediately respond to CD's news request for comment on Stiles' remarks. CBC News reports that the Ekati Diamond Mines parent company, Arctic Canadian Diamond Company, has filed for creditor protection, citing its inability to pay bills after global events caused diamond prices to fall by over 70% within a year. The Calgary-based operator and subsidiary of Australian Burgundy Diamond Mines was granted temporary legal protection by the Supreme Court of British Columbia until at least May 11. The filings put hundreds of jobs at risk, with the workforce having already dropped from about 700 in 2024 to 340 by March 31, and also jeopardized millions in promised payments to Indigenous communities. The company accumulated debts totaling around $655 million, despite receiving a $175 million federal loan and a $2 million partridge to payment from the NW Quite government. Factors blamed for the collapse include the emergence of lab-grown alternatives, declining purchases from China, and tariff impacts. The mine's long-term future and estimated $428 million cleanup costs are now in doubt. Canada's Federal Intelligence Commissioner Simon Noel issued a record 14 decisions last year, marking the highest number since the position was established, according to a report from the Canadian press. This independent oversight role involves approving or rejecting national security activities proposed by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CONSIS, and the Communications Security Establishment, CSE, Canada's cyberspace agency. These activities, spanning cybersecurity efforts, foreign intelligence collection, and data usage, are reviewed for potential conflicts with Canadian laws or impacts on Canadians' privacy. In 2025, Noel received 14 ministerial authorizations for review, with 9 related to CSE and 5 to CA, approving 13 and partially approving 1. The Canadian restaurant industry is experiencing significant financial strain, with a recent Q1 2026 report from Restaurants Canada revealing that 36% of establishments are currently operating at a loss or merely breaking even. This figure represents a threefold increase compared to 2019. Business owners are grappling with the nationwide affordability crisis, escalating operating costs, and inconsistent consumer spending. The report highlights that nearly 50% of operators reported lower sales, over half saw fewer guests, and 71% experienced declining profitability. After 2.4% growth in 2025, a 0.2% decline in real commercial food service sales is projected for 2026. President and CEO Kelly Higginson emphasized the industry's vulnerability, stating that it's typically the first to feel economic pressure when Canadians are struggling. To address these challenges, Restaurants Canada is advocating for a permanent exemption of the Goods and Services Tax, DST, on all food in the country, aiming to provide direct relief to Canadians and ensure tax fairness. This news comes from City News Everywhere. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.